if you want to look at it, maybe it's part of the plan, because then hungry people react more violently, and then there can be more police control. And another distant early warning before I jump on the next slide here. When people start flash mobbing supermarkets and grain storage facilities out in the countryside, there's going to be a call to police and have army in every store to control that. And they're going to want to station troops out in the countryside to control the food supply. Make sure it's safe for everybody, that there's no flash mob bandits coming in to steal your hard-earned wheat from a farmer. That'll be the push. I would believe by the end of the year there will be military or armed personnel in every single supermarket. They'll introduce digital rationing cards at that point, because food will get so expensive and unavailable. And welcome back. Thank you for spending your valuable time. David Dubine here, Brighteon TV, creator of the Adapt 2030 channel. Before the break, we're talking about crops being lost and how would this push you and your family, your community, in the future of food pricing. How will that affect the globe and everybody in the economy? And truly, what happens at the end of the year for us and our families? We're going to need to get ready for some of these changes. Not widely talked about, but I do want to bring some of the solutions. Now, knowing that we're coming into a crop lean period here, the very least that you could do is start growing some of your own food. Now, that's easier said than done for a lot, but one thing for sure, as this information comes more and more in public around November, December, January, there's going to be an all-out mad rush to go buy farm tools, shovels, rakes, hoes, whatever it is, to be able to take your backyard or your side of your yard, front yard, whatever, and turn it into a food-producing plot. You're going to have 40 million Americans running for that, but there'll be 1 million tools available. 39 will go without. Now, I could see new industries coming out of this where you could go to a junkyard and pull a hood off of a car and, use some kind of arc weld and make that pattern and then bend it in, and there'll be a homemade shovel. There's a huge amount of opportunity with things to solve the problems moving forward. But just a distant early warning, buy some seeds, because the seed companies will run out. Again, it's the same supply and demand. 40 million homes want to buy seeds, not just one packet, but kilograms and kilograms and boxes and hundreds and thousands of dollars worth at the same time. Every seed company across America will be sold out within the week. Even within the day, if there was that volume of order, there would be no seed left at the end of the day today. If most Americans that were going to grow food, that they will, ran to buy seed the same day, there'd be none left. So these are the things that will run out first, and to be able to protect yourselves. So that last half hour was more about showing the science behind it, but then there should be some anecdotal evidence backing up the claim that, Southern Hemisphere, with all the ash in the air, there should be some cooling showing itself, should be something ever present that will show us the way and how intense the cooling will get, but at the same time, how expensive will these crops get as we start to walk into the supermarket shelves and buy. The hype about collagen is real. Over 1,100 people participated in a study that demonstrated collagen supplements are some of the best ways to improve the quality and health of your skin. The study found that taking collagen for 90 days is effective in reducing the appearance of skin aging. Collagen does this by improving skin elasticity and hydration. And it's also one of the most effective ways to strengthen joints, bones, and ligaments, along with helping hair and nail growth. 5 key types of collagen you need from 4 different sources. And you also get a free e-report titled The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin that help slow down the effects of aging. And take up to 51% off your order by going to healthwithadapt2030.com. Free shipping, 60-day money-back guarantee. That link's in the description box below. And now on with the video. Well, the Brazilian agriculture official told China, okay, hold on, we're not going to give you any corn until next year. And you could read the article and go, whoa, they're going to embargo China. Brazil's not going to sell any corn. That's a head spinner. But then if you read deeper in the article, which I have here, pulled out this part, Beijing requested the monitoring of a few weeds and fungi in the corn crops. Rolling us back to the same problem. Herbicides, fungicides, pesticides. So they have a field of corn, but it's full of chest-high weeds. And they're in there with their combines, and it's all going into the same place. That's why China wants tests for these weeds. A, they don't want them in the food, and B, they don't want them exported or imported into China. Poisonous chemicals off of some of these plants, of course. You would definitely want your food tested. That's the reason they have herbicides. They spray that in there to knock out any other type of plant species that would want to grow there on the same soil. That way when you go through with the combine, you only get 100% corn. Normally, yeah, you might get a couple stragglers off the side or whatnot, a little morning glory in there. But the fungi, again, wet conditions, something's not growing correctly. Why would they target fungus? Fungus comes in wet conditions, which means volcanic aerosols blocking the sunlight so the UV doesn't disinfect it. That's why there's fungus. Chinese already understand this. They've been wiped out many a time from their dynasties. These 400-year cycles of solar activity, when the sun's magnetic fields decline, our jet streams and cloud cells go out of their phase once every 400 years. We're at that time again. Now, China's lived through this how many times going back? No Chinese dynasty has lasted longer than 400 years. And you wonder why? Well, they're back to this point, and they understand it too. She is trying to be the only leader of that country to ever survive and move through a grand solar minimum with power intact on the backside of it. So I can see easily why China would say, tell us about the fungus, tell us about the weeds. They know the cycles. In Argentina, you can come back and go through NASDAQ, or you can follow 100 different news sources, but 33% of the expected output in America, for Argentina, that's the next slide, America, for Argentina has been lost. So you're looking at least a 33% decline. And there's that number 33 again. Sometimes I question these news articles when I keep seeing repeating 33s in it. But at least 33% of the export, are they going to save the planet? No. They just lost part of their exports. Those were earmarked for exports to other nations that are on the smaller end, not China. Where are they going to get their foods from now? And here with the wheat apocalypse, 71% of the U.S. wheat crop right now is in a drought phase of sorts. And I was referencing the bushel declines coming out of Kansas now from the USDA reports. 20 to 25 average bushels per acre in the east, which is in good condition, good growing conditions. Normally it'd be around 55 to 62 if you want to be super exact. But roll that back and then look at the Canada's crop production. All wheat harvest is going to be down 35% from last year. So you start to add these little bits up, 35% down here, 30% there, 15% down here, and it's starting to add into, the bucket is full. It's filling quickly of how much is being set on the table that we're not going to get this year. Canada and the United States are major producers, and we're still getting hit with these kind of losses. And then the EU. I mean, barley is still a huge crop, and barley breads here in the States are more of a specialty thing, but if you travel around Europe, you get all types of the most amazing breads made out of barley and spelt and millet, sorghum. There's all types of these different breads that I hadn't really seen on shelves all the time in the States. But barley is still a huge use for crop for human consumption. I know a lot of it does go to the animal feed, but you're cutting a third off of that crop. So even if you're going to go to substitution crops and you say, all right, this wheat thing is way too expensive, I am going to shift. I'm going to go to spelt, amaranth, buckwheat, sorghum, millet, or barley. They just lost a third of the crop. Now what? Now how many levels can you go down before you don't find a substitute? And then you hit that base level where there's nowhere else to go. Then what? You start crawling back up the ladder on double, triple, quadruple pricing? Oh yeah. Your pocketbook's happy with that one. And if we even look total grains, EU's crop projected to fall, they're talking millions and millions of tons down. But again, it's always rosy in the beginning because the USDA, that's the United States Department of Agriculture, their mission statement is not to give you the truth about crops, it is to stabilize markets. Stabilize markets. So when you look at this, and I've seen these rosy forecasts continually declining since they put them out, and you know it's going to be a downward trend. So that revision in Kansas will probably come in at 15 to 18 bushels per acre, and this is definitely going to go below 120 million. But then there's all these other countries out there that need imports as well. Where are they going to get it from? Well, a lot of this is earmarked for somebody else over long-term contracts. It's not like you just pull 1 million tons. Here, have that. Happy Thursday. Happy Friday. Here's another 2 tons of barley. It's already pre-bought on contract. And word is on the street, a lot of these countries are holding it in warehouses because they know it's going to get really expensive and they don't want to be overthrown through a popular revolt of food, because food, hungry people change governments. So I would save food for my own people if I was a government. I don't want to get overthrown and kicked out of a palace or whatever residence it is. So that's not actually making it to the market. The volume that it should, you might see those numbers, but the volume that will actually get pushed into the market this year is going to be far, far less, because everybody behind the CYA over in the EU, they've already seen what's happened in Egypt and different food disturbances across the planet, Sri Lanka being another one. Now it's in Panama and it's in Sudan and it's everywhere. And the UK now is looking at some civil unrest because of food prices. Now Paraguay was normally an exporter of soybeans, but this year they lost 60% of their crop. Remember, Southern Hemisphere country, South American country, and that same volcanic ash belt, they lost 60% of their crop, and now they need to import soybeans when they were an exporter. So where are they going to get the soybeans from? Because they were normally an exporter. So what they would export, that's minus, but now they're looking on the world market to bring it in. So somebody else is going to go without. And you can see this cat and mouse game happening all over the world right now. So that we just have to go back in time, and then can we put a face on this, on price rises? And we can stay within the historical context, because we can't jump out on some like 55 million sigma event and go, oh, it's going to go to $600 for a bushel of wheat. It's not going to, I can't say that, because historical precedent is here. The highest would be 7x increase, which occurred right around 1694. And we can see bumps through there, but you notice one thing, it does stabilize again. You come up into a super spike, like a commodity super cycle spike, and then whoop, it comes back down, levels again. But we get multiple and repetitive bumps up in price. And 1.2 would be a 6x on that. Now this is covering Amsterdam, Paris, and Brussels from 1690 to 1702. And history books are steeped with revolution after revolution, let them eat cake. The most change politically across Europe was done because of hungry people. And we are coming into a very starving people shortly here. If you want to look at it, maybe it's part of the plan, because then hungry people react more violently, and then there can be more police control. And another distant early warning before I jump on the next slide here. When people start flash mobbing supermarkets and grain storage facilities out in the countryside, there's going to be a call to police and have army in every store to control that. And they're going to want to station troops out in the countryside to control the food supply. Make sure it's safe for everybody, that there's no flash mob bandits coming in to steal your hard-earned wheat from a farmer. That'll be the push. I would believe by the end of the year there will be military or armed personnel in every single supermarket. They'll introduce digital rationing cards at that point, because food will get so expensive and unavailable. And then they will also try to push troops out into the countryside under the guise of protecting food and food security. That's by December of this year. This is how fast all of this is going to hit. The realization, excuse me, once that the tallies come in for the northern hemisphere and it's very low, and then they're looking at the southern hemisphere on the projections, and it's going to be, wow, I can't even believe it stepped off a cleft like that. Then the realization will hit, and as soon as that does, the markets are going to run like you've never seen them. We're going to go into record high pricing across all commodities. Now, right now they're trying to have us switch over to eat bugs instead of beef. Well, the same thing was true from 1270 AD up to 1870. This chart here, it shows cattle, pig, and sheep. And one of the most interesting things is that gap right there. There was no records kept because society was plagued back, starved back till they didn't have even minimal operating capacity to keep the lights on and the doors open, so there was no records kept. That's how low the population went. The only reason they know is because the funerary rites, the monks kept good records on how many cases of candles they ordered for the funeral rites. So they can get a general step off there, and they were looking at about 27% of population wiped out at that time. Not even close to 50. It was right around 25%, and they had that huge gap in the record of a 25% wipeout of the population. It seems like we're trending this way anyway. I digress. The sheep, the cattle, and the pig. And you'll notice that when the price of feed goes up, other animals are substituted. This will be the same with your crops, you know, whether it's barley or whether it's wheat, whether you're raising sheep, goat, or a cow. That's going to shift. This is one of the best charts to really put it in your head. When there's not enough grain available for animal feed, society moves over to still produce food, tastes change, meat preferences change, but it'll happen in its own time. And please don't start me with the cannibalism. That is unacceptable, and they're trying to get you to think that that is a meat source. It is not. Why would we even put that in our brains that we would live like that? We can still work as communities and grow smaller animals. We can raise goat and get the milk and some for meat. Why would you step down to eating insects when we still could fully, through this, like they said, the fall out of society, and that chart shows that it can be done. But nope, we can't do it. Got to go to some sort of carbon allocation credit so you can buy some insect snack in a store that's manned by machine guns. Okay. So half the growers reduced output in the UK. It's just too expensive for them to produce food anymore in greenhouse settings. So anything eggplant related, aubergine family, tomatoes, peppers, that would be like banana peppers and that sort of thing, hot red chili peppers, 50% of production's gone. So then Boris Johnson, this is an older slide obviously. So you're going to have the choice A or choice B here, England and UK. Yay! Starve or freeze. You got to choose one. General population won't have enough money to do both. That's terrifying. This is from the UK. This is not from a developing nation that has a lot of corruption in the upper echelons of power. This is from the UK. Well, they do too, but I mean, you know what I mean. It's a different type of economy here. And this is why they're expecting civil unrest and massive protests here coming in the UK shortly, within the next month or 6 weeks. History is history. We used to base the silver off the grains of the wheat. 252 grains of wheat would be the measure of silver. Like how hungry are you when you're giving away your family's dynastic wealth to be able to trade for food? Well, if it goes back to a gold and silver barter system where the gold standard and silver is used as currency, how hungry do you have to be to come back to actually trade your precious metals in to eat? We've seen it through history, and it's so clean on the coins. Look at that. Aksum, the top left is Aksum Kingdom. That ran down through the Red Sea, and they were involved in the frankincense route going through Saudi Arabia, and they controlled and issued the newest, cleanest gold coinage after the collapse of the Roman Empire. And on the right, obviously, what is that good for? Food, medicine, and entertainment. I mean, it's right there on the coin. And we're going to be looping back in history. We're going to go back to this again. You know, what are you going to trade for a mouthful of food is the question. India says, no, well, you know, we see all this too. Thank you, David, for showing us this. But we already saw it. We're way ahead of you back in June. We're going to stop exporting wheat. We're going to keep it in the country. Now what happens to all those that relied on India for the wheat? They're going to have to look elsewhere, but everybody else is looking elsewhere, so price is going to get bid up. That's what they do with physical commodity. And you might look and go, no, okay, that's just one big country. Argentina limiting corn exports. Spain rationing products in supermarkets. Hungary banning all grain exports. And Malaysia stopping all chicken exports. This is called resource nationalism. When a country's leaders see that they are going to get thrown out in a violent revolution because of starving citizens, they keep the food in the country so they don't get thrown out of power. And the more resource nationalism happens, the higher the prices go because there's not enough on the world market for 100 extra countries to bid in on. They're physically not there with the product. That's why this year, coming up in September, so many people want physical delivery out of the Chicago Board of Trade because they see it too. You get the physical in your hand, you can ask whatever you want for it. Barge load, it's loaded. What are you going to give me? Oh, wait, I got another call. What are you going to give me? What are you going to get? They're going to be like this, old school. In the pit, the corn pit will come back to life again. Syria bans exports of some foodstuffs. Tunisia suspends vegetable exports. And it just rolls on. Article after article like this. And now we come into resource nationalism with a farm input. Belarus was saying, nah, no more potassium fertilizers. And then Russia, obviously the lion's share of exports for that, cut it off. And it's all about the money. It's all about the silver. It's about the coinage. What's going to hold value through the collapse in the food price hyperinflation events here? That's the question. You know, how do you really protect yourself? Tools, seeds, this sort of thing. I'll go jump back in history again one more time here. This is different areas of skilled workers being paid by grain, not money. They were paid by grain per day. Kilograms, which is 2.2 pounds of whatever grain it was. Some of it was barley, some of it was wheat. And if you take a look in southern England with the wheat, they were being paid in a bag of wheat each day. In the 1500s, mid-1500s, they were getting 10 kilograms, or like 20 pounds of wheat per day, and then you swing over into the mid-1600s, and suddenly that's only 4 kilograms. That's more than doubling in the food price. So the amount of wage that you could trade for that. And then we look into Madrid, and we see the same thing, a reduction in the amount of grain given for the same day's wage. But here it's so stark, Krakow. If we go over to Poland, that's a 3x decline. So before you got 48 kilos of grain per day to work, and then now you're going to work for 15 kilos. You see, it's inflation in the grains. So if we're looking for true information about what's happening in the Southern Hemisphere and how this is going to push food prices and grain prices, Uruguay, oh, that looks really cold and below normal. 3 degrees Celsius drop. You would expect at least a 0.7 drop if Tonga cools the Southern Hemisphere like it did with Pinatubo in the Northern Hemisphere, and as it rolled over the equator south. 0.7 of a degree cooling is what you're looking for. Look at this, Uruguay exceeding that. They're already at 0.3 down. And then we start to look in Argentina, 4 degrees down. Significantly more than Pinatubo, and still nobody's talking about this and how it's going to wreak havoc through growing for the next 2 years. You like snow? Well, this event seems to have, with all the water vapor put up, pulled and having an enormous amount of particles for clouds to build in and drop snow and rain. Before and after, they usually don't get this much snow. This is a full year's worth of snow that's on the right there, but it came in a week. You're getting these massive events. Another anecdotal evidence, if we go up to Zimbabwe and South Africa here, the cotton farmers, it's too cold. They can't produce. The weather is too cold. The climate's too cold for them to grow. And it just turned right on like a light switch. Alice Springs, longest streak, sub-zero days below freezing, below 32 Fahrenheit in a row ever recorded. And then you get these massive floods in Australia. Again, it's a particulate, it's rain, it's not snow, but the same massive once in a 1,000-year storms coming again and again, once in a 1,000-year flood 2 weeks in a row. Massive snowstorms. And then New Zealand, too much snow. They need to close up. They can't provide people services. It's too snowy. So as I present to you today, there is a huge risk that's not being talked about, hidden even. The only way to move through it is to protect yourselves, your families, have these discussions with others, share videos from Brighteon TV that have the same type of information with fact behind it, so then you can go in and start the conversation. We're all in it together. I'm here with you. That's why I'm presenting the information, and I do thank you for watching today. David Duvine, signing off.